need you to stay with me for the next few minutes, because what I'm about to tell you is the kind of story that changes the way you see the people closest to you. I walked into that courtroom on a suffocating Thursday morning. Nothing felt different about the heat, but the air inside was freezing. By the time the judge called our case, everything I thought I knew about my family was gone. And what I found out next, most people can't even bring themselves to say out loud. Before we go deeper into this story, take a second and hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. My name is Ethan Vance. For 7 years, I thought I was living the classic American dream in a quiet, tree-lined suburb just outside of Columbus, Ohio. I was a structural engineer, a man who built his life on solid foundations, blueprints, and predictable outcomes. My wife, Vanessa, was a high-end interior designer. She had an eye for aesthetics, a gift for making the fractured look flawless. Together, we owned a beautifully restored 4-bedroom colonial house on Oak Ridge Drive. It wasn't just a building. It was a home I spent 3 years personally renovating, pouring my sweat, savings, and weekends into every beam and floorboard. We had a 6-year-old daughter, Chloe, who was the absolute center of my universe. From the outside, we were the couple friends envied. But looking back, I realized that Vanessa wasn't just designing houses. She was designing a massive, calculated illusion, waiting for the perfect moment to pull the rug right out from under my feet. The shift didn't happen overnight, but looking back, the signs were radiating like heat off asphalt. It started around the time Vanessa took on a major commercial renovation project for a wealthy local developer named Julian Vance. No relation to us, just a bitter coincidence in names. Suddenly, Vanessa's late nights at the studio multiplied. Her phone, which used to sit casually on the kitchen counter, became an extension of her hand, always face down, always locked with a new passcode. When I questioned her, her voice carried a cold, dismissive edge. "Ethan, I'm trying to secure our family's financial future," she'd snap, making me feel like an ungrateful anchor weighing down her ambitions. I tried to compensate. I took over cooking, handled Chloe's school runs, and kept the house pristine. But the atmosphere in our beautiful Oak Ridge home grew heavy, almost toxic. Vanessa stopped looking me in the eye. When she did, her gaze wasn't filled with anger. It was filled with something far worse, pity, and a strange, quiet smugness, as if she knew a secret I hadn't even begun to guess. Little did I know, the woman I shared a bed with was actively mapping out my destruction, treating our marriage like a business acquisition, where I was the asset meant to be liquidated. The hammer fell on a mundane Tuesday afternoon. I was at a construction site checking concrete core samples when a courier tracked me down and handed me a thick manila envelope. Inside were divorce papers, cited under irreconcilable differences, alongside an emergency motion requesting that I be temporarily removed from the Oak Ridge property for the duration of the proceedings. I sat in my truck, the engine idling, staring at Vanessa's elegant signature at the bottom of the page. It felt like the oxygen had been vacuumed right out of the cabin. When I drove home, furious and confused, I found the locks had already been changed. Vanessa opened the door exactly 2 inches, held back by a security chain. Her face was completely devoid of emotion. "Speak to my lawyer, Ethan," she said softly, her voice dripping with an eerie calm. "This house belongs to Chloe and me now. You need to pack whatever fits in your truck and leave." Standing on the porch I built with my own hands, looking at the woman I loved treating me like a trespassing stranger, a dark realization set in. This wasn't a sudden emotional breakdown. This was a clinical, premeditated strike. She wanted the house, she wanted full custody of Chloe, and she wanted me entirely wiped out of the picture. For the next 2 months, I lived out of a sterile, extended-stay motel near the interstate. The roar of the highway became the background noise to my waking nightmare. Vanessa's legal team, led by a notoriously ruthless family attorney named Richard Sterling, launched a full-scale smear campaign. They painted me as an unstable, emotionally checked-out father whose career demands made me unfit for joint custody. Every text message I sent Vanessa begging to see Chloe was twisted in legal letters as harassment. My own attorney, a grounded, no-nonsense man named Marcus Vance, warned me to keep my composure. "She's baiting you, Ethan," Marcus told me over a desk piled high with court motions. "She wants you to show up there, yell, or break something. If you do, she gets a restraining order, and we lose the house and your daughter permanently. Play it cold." But staying cold is nearly impossible when your entire life is being dismantled by a woman who used to whisper that she couldn't live without you. I felt completely powerless, watching my savings dwindle as I paid legal fees just to fight for supervised weekend visits with my own daughter. The turning point came during a brief court-ordered window where I was permitted to enter the Oak Ridge house with a neutral third-party deputy to retrieve my remaining personal tools and engineering equipment from the basement workshop. Vanessa stood at the top of the basement stairs, her arms crossed, watching me like a hawk. She looked incredibly satisfied, surveying my half-empty workshop as if she had already won the war. As I was packing my heavy-duty rolling toolbox, it jammed. A small, decorative wooden jewelry box that belonged to Vanessa's late grandmother had somehow fallen behind the drawers, wedged tight against the back panel. Vanessa didn't see it drop into my crate. When I got back to the motel room and finally pried the toolbox drawer open, the small wooden box slid out. I opened it, expecting to find old costume jewelry or keys. Instead, lying beneath a velvet lining, was a sleek, silver digital voice recorder and 3 micro SD cards wrapped in a piece of paper with dates scribbled in Vanessa's neat handwriting. That night, sitting on the edge of a creaky motel bed, I plugged the first memory card into my laptop. I expected to find business notes or design ideas. Instead, what filled the room was Vanessa's voice speaking softly, intimately, but not to me. It wasn't a phone call recording. It was a digital audio diary. Vanessa had a lifelong habit of talking through her thoughts to process her designs, but these entries were entirely about her grand strategy for our divorce. Entry 14, October 3rd. Her recorded voice echoed through the cheap motel room. "Julian thinks Ethan is too smart to miss the financial transfers, but Ethan trusts me implicitly. I've successfully moved another $20,000 from our joint equity line into the offshore consulting account Julian set up. Once the balance hits $200,000, I'll file. Sterling says if I can provoke Ethan into an aggressive outburst on camera, the judge will grant me exclusive occupancy of the Oak Ridge property without a second thought." I sat there, the blood draining from my face. It was all there. The financial fraud, the collusion with her developer lover, and the deliberate plot to frame me. I listened to the audio files for 6 straight hours, my hands shaking as I took detailed notes. The recordings spanned over a year. They detailed a meticulous step-by-step conspiracy between Vanessa, her lover Julian, and her attorney Richard Sterling. It turned out Vanessa had been systematically draining our marital assets, funneling money into dummy corporations to make it appear as though my engineering business was failing, all while fabricating a narrative of emotional abuse. In one particularly chilling entry from November, she laughed quietly. "Ethan bought me a gold necklace for our anniversary today. He looked so desperate to please me. It's almost pathetic. He has no idea that by next summer he'll be paying me alimony out of a studio apartment while Julian and I redecorate the Oak Ridge house. I just need to make sure Chloe keeps telling the court evaluator that Daddy is always angry." Hearing my daughter's name weaponized by the woman who gave birth to her broke something inside me. The grief died instantly, replaced by a cold, unyielding resolve. The next morning, I showed up at Marcus's office without an appointment. When I laid the laptop down and played a 2-minute clip of Vanessa detailing how she intended to perjury herself regarding our finances, Marcus's jaw dropped. He leaned back in his leather chair, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across his face. "Ethan," he whispered, "this changes the entire battlefield. But we cannot let them know we have this. If Vanessa realizes her diary is missing, her lawyer will find a way to claim it was obtained illegally, or alter their strategy before we hit the courtroom." Marcus explained the legal hurdles. Ohio is a one-party consent state for recording conversations, but because this was a personal diary left in a shared marital property, discovered inside my own personal toolbox, we had a strong legal standing to introduce it, but only if we used it as impeachment evidence when Vanessa took the stand under oath. We had to let her lie first. We had to let her walk right into the trap she had dug for me. Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far on this story below. I read every single one. The day of the final evidentiary hearing arrived. The courtroom was a grand wood-paneled chamber in the Franklin County Courthouse. Vanessa arrived looking radiant, dressed in an immaculate cream-colored designer suit, flanked by Richard Sterling, who carried himself with the supreme confidence of a predator about to claim an easy kill. Julian Vance was even sitting in the back gallery, offering Vanessa supportive smiles from the benches. When Vanessa looked over at me, sitting next to Marcus in my simple gray suit, she gave me a tiny, triumphant nod. It was the ultimate look of smug certainty. She truly believed she had checked all the boxes. She had the fake financial statements, the coached statements, and the high-priced attorney. She thought she was about to strip me of the colonial house I built, take my daughter, and leave me with a mountain of fabricated debt. I looked back at her, keeping my expression entirely blank, holding the small silver flash drive tightly inside my pocket. Richard Sterling took the podium and began his opening statement, painting a devastating fictional picture of our marriage. He claimed that I was a financially irresponsible man who had mismanaged our joint accounts, forcing Vanessa to take out loans just to keep the roof over Chloe's head. He presented doctored financial spreadsheets showing heavy losses in my engineering firm. Then, Vanessa took the stand. Under Sterling's gentle prompting, she put on a masterclass in performance art. Her voice cracked with practiced emotion as she described living in fear of my volatile temper. She looked directly at Judge Evelyn Harrison, a strict, no-nonsense jurist known for her protective stance on children's welfare. "Your Honor," Vanessa pleaded, wiping a tear from her cheek, "I don't want to ruin Ethan's life. I just want safety for my daughter. That house is the only stability Chloe has ever known. Ethan has become unstable and his business is completely broke. I ask for full ownership of the property to ensure our daughter isn't displaced." Judge Harrison looked toward our table, her expression stern and unimpressed. "Mr. Vance, your witness," she said coldly. Marcus stood up casually, adjusting his tie. He walked over to the podium, looking completely relaxed, almost jovial. Vanessa braced herself, expecting an aggressive, angry cross-examination. Instead, Marcus started softly. "Mrs. Vance, you've stated under oath today that your husband completely mismanaged your joint finances, correct?" Marcus asked. "Yes," Vanessa replied firmly, her voice steady. "And you claim that you had no outside financial assistance and were forced to borrow money to maintain the Oak Ridge home?" "Yes, absolutely," she stated, looking directly at the judge. "And finally," Marcus leaned in, "you have testified that Mr. Vance's emotional state made the home environment dangerous for your daughter Chloe." "It was terrifying for her," Vanessa said, casting a sorrowful look toward the judge's bench. Marcus nodded slowly, walking back to our table. He picked up the silver flash drive. "Your Honor, I would like to introduce Exhibit F, a series of certified audio files discovered within a shared container in the marital home, containing direct admissions by the plaintiff regarding the exact matters she has just testified to." Sterling instantly leaped to his feet, his voice booming. "Objection, Your Honor. This is an ambush. Opposing counsel has not disclosed these audio files in discovery, and we have no confirmation of their authenticity or how they were obtained." Judge Harrison frowned, looking between Marcus and Sterling. "Mr. Vance, what is the nature of these files and why weren't they provided during initial discovery?" Marcus remained perfectly calm. "Your Honor, these files are introduced strictly as impeachment evidence to counter direct perjury committed on the stand less than 2 minutes ago. The voice on these recordings belongs exclusively to the plaintiff, detailing her deliberate plans to defraud this court." Judge Harrison, intrigued and visually tired of Sterling's grandstanding, ordered the audio to be played in open court. The bailiff plugged the drive into the courtroom's sound system. The room fell dead silent. A second later, Vanessa's clear, casual voice filled the high-ceilinged room. "Entry 22, January 15th, the speaker boomed. "Sterling says the doctored spreadsheets for Ethan's firm look perfect. Julian's accountant managed to hide the $150,000 we transferred out of Ethan's commercial account beautifully. If Ethan tries to bring up the missing funds in court, Sterling will just claim he spent it on gambling or bad investments. The judge will never look past the bank statements we provide. As long as I keep up the act of the scared mother, the Oak Ridge house is guaranteed to be mine by summer." Vanessa's face went from pale to completely translucent. The smug smile vanished so fast it looked like it had been slapped off her face. In the back gallery, Julian Vance stood up so quickly he knocked his briefcase to the floor. He rushed out of the double doors of the courtroom without looking back. Richard Sterling was furiously shuffling through his notes, his hands visibly trembling as he realized his own name had just been linked to a criminal conspiracy to commit bankruptcy and family court fraud. Vanessa gripped the edges of the witness stand, looking desperately at the judge. "Your Honor, that is a deep fake. That is an AI-generated recording. Ethan made that to destroy me," she screamed, her polished facade completely shattering into absolute panic. But Judge Harrison raised her hand, and the sheer authority in her gesture silenced the entire room. The judge's eyes were like twin blocks of ice as she stared down at Vanessa. "Mrs. Vance," the judge said in a dangerously quiet tone, "you are currently under oath. I suggest you remember that before you say another word." Marcus didn't even need to ask another question. He simply played the next file, the one where Vanessa laughed about me buying her an anniversary necklace while she planned to redecorate our house with her lover. The recording explicitly detailed how she had coached Chloe to lie to the court social worker, telling her daughter that Daddy didn't love her anymore. By the time the recording stopped, Vanessa was sobbing hysterically, her head buried in her hands. The smug, untouchable designer had been completely reduced to rubble by her own words, captured by her own secret diary. Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. Tell me what part hit you the hardest in my story, and share your thoughts in the comments. Judge Harrison leaned forward, her face dark with fury. "Mr. Sterling, do you have any redirect for your witness?" Sterling stood up, looked at Vanessa, looked at the judge, and quietly said, "No, Your Honor." Judge Harrison didn't even recess to make her decision. She ruled from the bench immediately. "In my 22 years on the bench," Judge Harrison declared, her voice echoing off the walls, "I have rarely witnessed such a calculated, malicious attempt to weaponize this court, defraud a spouse, and abuse the psychological well-being of a child." The judge completely dismissed Vanessa's motion for exclusive occupancy. She awarded me temporary sole legal and physical custody of Chloe, effective immediately. Furthermore, the judge ordered the Oak Ridge house to be placed solely in my name, with Vanessa given 48 hours to vacate the property under police escort. But the judge wasn't done. "I am referring these audio files directly to the county prosecutor's office for immediate criminal investigation into grand larceny, wire fraud, and perjury. And Mr. Sterling, your conduct in this matter will be formally reported to the State Bar Association by this office before the close of business today." 2 days later, I stood on the front porch of the Oak Ridge Colonial House, watching a moving truck park at the curb. 2 sheriff deputies stood by as Vanessa, dressed in a plain gray hoodie and sweatpants, a stark contrast to her designer suit, carried boxes out of the front door. She wouldn't look at me. The smugness was completely gone, replaced by the crushing weight of impending criminal charges. As she drove away in a cheap rental car, Julian having completely abandoned her to protect his own real estate empire, I walked back inside the house. The air felt lighter. The toxic fog that had filled the rooms for the past year had completely evaporated. I walked upstairs to Chloe's room, where my daughter was happily organizing her stuffed animals, completely safe from the legal warfare that had almost consumed her childhood. Building a life on a foundation of lies is like building a house on quicksand. It doesn't matter how beautiful the design is. Eventually, the whole structure will come crashing down. Vanessa thought she had designed the perfect crime, but she forgot that truth has a way of recording itself, waiting for the exact moment to bring down the house. Today, Chloe and I are thriving. The Oak Ridge house is filled with laughter, real noise, and actual love. I survived the betrayal, not by fighting dirty, but by letting the truth do the heavy lifting. Thank you so much for watching this story on family secrets and revenge. If this journey through betrayal and ultimate justice resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful cinematic stories just like this one. Your support means everything to us, and I want to hear your take. Did Vanessa get exactly what she deserved? Let me know, and I'll see you in the next story.